You are listening to the Practicing People's Podcast. I'm CJ Hammond.
And I'm Jordan White. Together, we'll be taking a journey into the practices that help us align with our mind, body, and soul.
So take a deep breath, release, and remain curious as we explore new ways to enhance our lives. All right, we would like to welcome you back to another episode of the Practicing People's Podcast. And today we are thrilled to have Mike Reynolds, who is the owner and creator of the Parent Trap LLC, as our guest. With 11 years of experience working with families affected by autism, Mike has dedicated his career to making an impact in this field. Outside of his professional life, Mike is an avid traveler who loves to embrace different cultures and people. When he's not jet setting around the globe, you can find him working out several times a week or enjoying a ride around the golf course a few times a month. Additionally, Mike is a California kid in love with his Colombian queen, a Bob Dylan connoisseur, and a gatherer of tattoos, all while specializing in life because, as he says, life ain't a life till you live it. Mike, welcome to the Practicing People's Podcast.
Thank you, man. Great introduction off the top. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Awesome,
I'm so
man.
excited for you to be here, man. I know Mike personally through an amazing experience I had while I was out in San Diego in college. Was fortunate enough to play with one of the most incredible athletes you will ever see, a physical specimen, but one of the most genuine hearts. And as I progressed in life, I saw what you were doing, and you are one of the people that is exactly the type of person we want to be a guest on this show. So thank you.
Of course, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for, thinking about me. And yeah, we go back till 2006, I think was our official introduction to the G House, I believe they called it. Yeah. And as short as that was, like you mentioned, we've created, looking back now, almost 18 years. So we've stuck around, stuck in contact. So once again, I just appreciate you, just connecting with me just to, amplify our voices all here together.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. It's cool just knowing what sports can do too, with all of us having kind of that athletic background, and you meet so many lifelong friends through that. So it's cool to like just witness it and observe it. But yeah, before we got the show started today, Mike, you were saying you just got back from Europe. Tell us a little bit about your trip, man.
Man, it was crazy. It was one of those kind of just once in a lifetime experiences. And so as CJ mentioned in the introduction, I'm definitely an avid traveler. So I do have a pretty steady group of friends that we try to go internationally at least like once a year. So we've been doing that for almost, I would say 10 years now, maybe 11 years or so, that we just try and get up and go. And so our last kind of, or at least my kind of last hurrah was it's Yacht Week. So we ride around in a boat for 7 days in Italy. And so prior to that, I think I was in Rome for about 3 days exploring. We met up on one of the coasts, kind of cruised around, docked every other night, partied. Everything you kind of see on like the Bravo channel of people like partying and bullshit, and that's that's pretty much what it was. Just like 6 full nights of that, and then we stayed in Barcelona for 4 days after that. So it was pretty much like a 2 week kind of Euro trip for myself, just to kind of use my PTO, take time off, reset, recenter, do what I love, and kind of just be with my people.
Mm, that's awesome, man. It sounds like it was a great time. I'm curious, was there anything while you were out there traveling that you noticed about yourself?
About myself, man, I love I think, and I feel like we'll get into this later, but I just love my peace and my energy and kind of moving at my speed. So, with a group of, how many do we have? 10 people. It's a lot going on. And so, a lot of the times I say there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. And so, when that usually happens, I fade to the back and I let everybody else kind of just figure stuff out. So, they're like, oh, let's eat here, let's go here, let's buy this, let's do, and I'm just like, all right, you guys just let me know when you're done on the back end. I'll put my shoes on and I'll bounce, right? So I think just recognizing my energy source a lot throughout that trip with 9 other people was definitely something that I needed because say for instance, right, you're partying all night, right? You wake up on a boat, and everyone's either hungover or still asleep, and so I would kind of find myself going to like the top deck and kind of just chilling and just being in that moment, listening to music, stretching, which I'm 36 now, and I feel like my body and ex athletic history is catching up to me. So I stretch like religiously. So I was on the front, top of the deck, just stretching, listening to music, kind of, re-energizing myself and getting away from all 9 other people because once everybody's up, it's like, all right, what are we doing? Where are we going? Let's stick to the schedule. Let's drink, all that kind of stuff. So I definitely found, kind of just recentering my energy source, where even like the last 2 days of the trip in Barcelona, my battery was just depleted. And so a lot of the group would just go without me, and I would just like hang out at the crib, or I'll go on like solo adventures or excursions by myself just because I was like, if I'm around you guys, like it'll be more bad than it is good. So let me just vibe out. Let me do what I need to do, recharge my battery, and kind of I'll meet you guys at dinner.
Hey, I can attest to that. Me and Jordan, we just got together for the fourth, and albeit I can promise you it was not the same as that. It was a 3 hour boat trip, not a 36 hour boat trip. But
Yeah.
I needed my batteries recharged after 3 days, so I give you respect. Let me work backwards. So 36 now as a world traveler. Um, would you be able to tell me or speak to the truest parts of Mike that kind of led you to where you are now and the eclectic background that you do have? I think that that's one of the greatest parts about you is there's so much depth to you between athletics, world traveler, but also in what you do in your career now and how you communicate with people.
Yeah. Man, we can take it all the way back. And so I think, and I've been kind of ruminating about this since we had our kind of pre-discussion, is it starts at childhood. I think being a behavior analyst by nature, I can track my behavior back to my childhood when it all started. And so I was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My mom and I moved to California when I was about 6 months old, and I've kind of been here ever since. But she remarried when I was about 11 years old, and I would say that was probably the most pivotal point in my childhood that I can remember where things changed, right? So it was me and my mom for 11 years, solo dolos. That's my twin. We're at church together, we're singing together. I remember vividly back in the day, I guess, well, I'm 36, so she had a stick shift, right? And so we had a cool thing where she would drive and I would do the stick shift for her and she would like just keep on pushing. So it was like our little thing, right? And then when I was 11, met my stepdad, and that kind of just flipped my whole world inside out, literally. And so didn't agree with my stepdad, didn't like him. It was just very traumatic, right? So I grew up in a very traumatic, abusive, emotionally and physically household. And so very early on, I became super independent. My stepfather had embedded in me that I was the cause or I was the issue in some of the marital strife that my mom and he had. And so he kind of beat that into me so well that I was like, all right, cool. I want my mom to be happy, so let me exclude myself since I'm the problem. And so I started this little world for myself, right? So I'm young, I'm a teenager, I'm going through all these things with really no family structure. So I'm like, I can only depend on myself. And so at that stage in life, I was like, all right, cool. All you got is you, right? So you're going to excel in sports. That's what you're passionate in, football, right? You're going to go at it. You're going to be the best that, Riverside, California has ever seen. You're going to make a name for yourself and you're going to do this and you're going to do that, right? And that just kind of bled over into post collegiate athletics. Was like, all right, where you want to go? Like you don't need to be in California forever. You have that spirit of kind of just getting up and going and figuring it out because your childhood told you that you have to figure it out, you have to, you have to get it on your own. And so that mindset came, okay, cool, let's go to San Diego. That was my first trip out of the city. Let's figure it out. I don't know if you my first or I don't know if it was before you or after you, but think it was after, because I think football season was over. But then after we left our apartment, I think I had to live with this lady in like her in her bedroom for like she had like a three-bedroom place, and I had a spare bedroom, and there was like another random dude like in the second bedroom, and I had to live there for like the next 3 or 4 months. And I was like, all right, it is what it is. Let me get these credits and get back out of here. Moved back home, and then got a scholarship to Colorado. And so I was out there for about 5 years. And then after Colorado, I was like, okay, cool, opportunity in Florida. Went to Florida, was out there for about 6 months. And so after Florida, came back home. And so I've always had this kind of wanderer spirit on like, dude, just go figure it out. And then I think that's when my traveling bug started kicking in. Shout out to my boy Andre McConnell and April. They started 50 states of the US, and they wanted to check off all 50 states. And so I was like, shit, like, why not me? Like, why not do it? And so I started doing that, started catching up with them and doing that. And from 50 states, it started turning international. And so it was just like, man, you just want to get out and go and see the world, because I think in California, we have the notion of like, oh, everything is beautiful in California. We got the beach, we got the mountains, we got the desert. It's all within proximity. And to be honest with you, I don't go to any of those places regularly. So it's like, okay, let me get out. Let me see what Louisiana's like. Let me see what Vermont is like. Let me see what, New Hampshire, Delaware, like all these states, North Dakota, South Dakota, right? Let me go into some of those places and just be with the people, see what it is. And that just goes with my, like you mentioned earlier, CJ, communication, right? You don't get a lot of places without communicating. So when I transplant to these areas, I have to communicate to get things done. Like, hey, where's the coolest bar? Or where's a safe place? Or hey, I recognize I'm a black man in North Dakota. Am I safe to go there? Am I safe to go to South Dakota, right? There's things that I have to observe and also be kind of cognizant about. And so that I work through communication. And luckily, I have the gift of gab sometimes, and I can just talk and talk and talk, but I can also feel people's energy as well. So when I'm talking to you and I get a good or bad energy, then that'll direct me on my kind of next move. So it all kind of works, in unison with each other. Is with that wanderer spirit, you have to communicate to enjoy people, to talk to people, and just to, enjoy life.
Amen.
Wow.
Oh man, powerful. Thank you for, yeah, just sharing a little more about. It's always interesting understanding the origin, right? And
Yeah.
hearing, especially with your profession now, you almost take a professional reflection back on like, oh, like here's why I started behaving certain ways, and here's what I noticed about myself,
Mm.
in this moment. So I'm just curious for you. You mentioned your stepdad. I'm just wondering if there are any other maybe pivotal moments as you do reflect back that
Mm.
you're like, may have been difficult at the time, but like you're almost grateful for it
Yeah.
happening because it shaped you into who you are today.
Yeah, man, and thanks to my therapist, Vicente, we had a 2-year battle figuring this thing out kind of around COVID. And so my stepdad and my mom divorced probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And so I think that's when our whole family kind of changed, right? My little brother, my mom, and myself, right? We're all going through this journey, a traumatic experience that lasted 26 years. And so now trying to scoop up where it started, how it happened. And so some of the pivotal moments, man, it's crazy. So a lot of the time when you look back on things as an adult, you really get to see that mm, that child in you, right? And so I think my therapist also always said, recognize your inner child, right? Because your inner child is always wanting to come out. Your inner child is always there, right? That's how you were formed. That's what created you. And so one pivotal moment, which is like etched in history because we have the photograph, is when my mom and stepfather got married. I don't know if I was like the ring boy, but I was on the little pedestal, right? And so I have like the stank face, I'm upset, I'm mad, and you can visibly like see it on my face. Like, I don't want this. Like, I really don't like this guy. Like, the energy was just off. He was very kind of guns blazing approach to things. And so there was a commercial I think it was like a Dove commercial or like a ring. It was weird. So you know how and CJ, you would know, commercials are more emotionally based now than like selling a product. So I think it was like Dove, but I remember the stepdad going to the kid and like, hey man, I really like your mom. Like, I think she's a really special person. You're also included in her life. Like, can I pretty much have your blessing to marry your mother? I was like, holy shit, like that's how it should have been. Like that makes sense. Like that's how it should have gone. Where my stepdad did the total averse. He was like, it's my way or the highway. And I was like, bro, like I've had 11 years with my mom, and now you're telling me like it's guns blazing. You do this exactly how I said it, in the manner that I said it, in which the manner that I said it, right? I'm like, it hasn't been like that for 11 years. Like, bro, like, and so as a kid, kids tell a story and kids feel energy the best. And I think that's why I love working with children, is because if they don't like you when you walk in the door, they'll tell you or they'll let you know. And so if your energy is off, they already have red flags versus people were like, "Oh, let's give them the benefit of the doubt or let's talk a little bit." But kids off the bat know like, "Okay, this is a dope person. Okay, this person maybe not so much." And at that age, at 11 or 12, I knew right off the bat like this dude is just it's not gonna work. It's not working. And so that was one of the like I said, moments, photographic moments. I think another one was it was a lot, man. And CJ knows I'm a very quiet person. I really don't talk unless I have to. But I think going through at least till I was 18, I think right before I went to San Diego, I don't even think CJ knows this story. I'm leaving the Grossmont, going to San Diego. It's about an hour and a half from me, and my stepdad's like, he's just on my ass and on my ass. And I've never snapped back. I've never hit him. I've never, I'm a, 6'1", 220. Like CJ said, I'm a physical specimen.
You
So
stout
I
boy.
know. So, growing up in high school, hitting the weights, like I'm a big guy, trying to get a D1 scholarship. And so my stepfather is maybe 5'7", 180, 190. So a smaller stature guy. And so he would always raise his voice and yell and try and trigger me. So there was a lot of moments of like me just swallowing that or just taking it, right? Even though I'm wrong, I'm gonna just bite the bullet because if I hit you, that's an issue. If I lash out at you, that's an issue. And then once again, it's gonna trigger my mom I don't want to put in that situation. So a lot of the times I'm just, all right, dude, whatever, do what you gotta do, yell at me, scream at me, blah, blah, blah. But at 18, I was getting ready. I think the bags were packed. I was ready to bounce, and we're in the garage and he's just snapping. I'm like, bro, just leave me alone. Like, I'm out of here. I'm out of high school. I'm 18 now. Like, I'm going to live my life. Just like back off. And so I can't remember the exact verbiage. I'm sure it was a little bit more harsh than that, but that was another moment where I was just like I had enough type of thing, right? And so it was just so many years of 7 years, right, of just that intense, if you want to say weekly or daily, just you're not good enough. You're the reason why you and your mother, or why me and you're the reason why I and your mother fight, right? You're the reason why this, you're the reason why that. I'm like, bro, like just stop it. Like leave me alone. I'm not in your household anymore. I'm not doing these things. He used religion as a weapon. And so he was very, God says this, Jesus did that. I work in the church. I'm holier than thou. And so he weaponized religion really, really well. So it's hard to, growing up religious as a Christian, it's hard to say you're wrong. It's hard to say that's not accurate, right? Because there's so many verses that can contradict themselves, but you can flip a few pages later and it's like, oh, okay, well, this is what it actually said, type of thing. So at that age, I'm 11 or 12, so I'm like, okay, well, God wants me to be obedient. God wants me to listen to your mother, your father, so like a lot of this stuff is like pulling, teeth until I get older and I go through therapy and I realize how he just weaponized it, right? How he saw this fragile 11-year-old and just manipulated the fuck out of him for 20 something years. And so it's taken a lot, like I said, therapy to get through it. I would say it's fractured kind of the relationship that I want with my mom just because it's 26 years of history, right? So now I live with my mom, and so trying to mend and trying to have that hallmark kind of movie moment with your mother that some people have. I don't have it. And so I long to have it, but it's like just pulling teeth trying to get past what that trauma has brought, or what that trauma has done to me, and what it just, embedded in my spirit for, 26 years. And so, yeah, it's been illuminating on just how it got me to where I am at the moment. And hopefully that kind of answered your initial question, Jordan. I know I kind of, like I said, I go all over the place, so bear with me.
No, that's real. That's great because you talk about what it is that. So you just talked about your family dynamics, and you've also talked about that you work with children now and families. So I guess this is a two front question. Did that lead you into your career first? So for the audience, first and foremost, let them know a little bit about what your career is now and what you do. And do you feel like that your past led you to your present in the fact of what you do now with families, with children, and how you intersect those with that? Do you see any correlation between those two?
I see some correlation. So right now I'm a board certified behavior analyst for the state of California. I'm also licensed in Texas as well, and I specifically work with families affected by autism. So like CJ said in the introductory, I've been working in this field for 11 years now, primarily in clinical settings, in school settings, and in homes as needed with with specific families. And so pretty much a board certified behavior analyst is a person that observes and analyzes behavior. So a lot of the questions that I get when I do tell people I work, or I'm in psychology, I keep it kind of, I just tell people like I'm a behavior analyst. I'm like, oh, so you're analyzing me right now? And I'm like, not necessarily, but I see how you're moving, right? So it has its moments, and do I think it led me? I don't think it led me there, but I definitely know how to carry myself in my position, right? So being a black man in ABA is what we call it, applied behavioral analysis. There's only 4% of our field are black men in ABA. So there's already asterisk on my name, on my appearance when I walk in the door. Like I said, I'm a big guy by stature. Now I'm tatted up. I used to have long dreadlocks as well too. So stereotypical African American, if that's what you want to, put quotations around that. And so I'm walking into California, Irvine, Orange County, Riverside, affluent white homes. A black man's coming into your home, telling you what to do with your child, right? And so a lot of that you have to learn how to be a chameleon in those situations. And so I can understand if I have to talk to the security guard before I enter your house or the gated community, or if there is, a multi-generational family that I'm dealing with in maybe a Hispanic neighborhood or a Black neighborhood, or, like I said, there's different kind of things that I have to take into account, which I do credit to my past because I was very observant as a child, because I had to be, right? My stepfather told me that I was the issue. Okay, so let me change my behavior so I don't make it worse for everybody else. And so I think now, going into homes, working with families, working with children, I'm able to take myself out of it, which I'm able to see what the parents are going through. I'm able to see what the child is going through. I'm able to see the dad that's not present, what he's going through or how he's feeling in that situation, right? Because all a dad really wants to do is connect with his son, throw a football around, play sports, right? But my son is on the spectrum. Like, he can't even hold a pencil right now. He can't even communicate, hey, dad, I want to play with you. So okay, how does that dad feel if all he wanted his son was to follow in his footsteps and his son is nonverbal? And so I have to like weave and find these kind of caveats on where can I um where can I guess buy in with this family, or where how can I approach this family, or what is my delivery going to be like, which, like you mentioned, CJ, it can all stem back from my childhood where I didn't speak unless I had to. I didn't talk unless I had to. I was only in spaces where I had to force myself into spaces and fit in those spaces because my family and my childhood was so traumatic. I didn't want to be home. Why am I going to be home when I have this guy that I don't like and I despise, right? So every Friday night or Friday, Saturday, I was at my boy's house after the football game, spending the night eating pizzas, waking up in the morning to pancakes. And I'm like, okay, so this is what a family looks like, right? So mom, dad, having the kids around, playing music, whatever it is. And so there was a lot of opportunities, I think, in my life as a child and growing up as a teenager that I kind of do take into the field right now. But a lot of it is just observation. I think a lot of us can, if we don't say anything, then a lot of it is going to do the talking. The environment is going to talk for us. People are going to talk for us in those situations.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, so much wisdom in that response there. And I'm just wondering how to kind of frame the question. I mean,
Yeah.
to kind of connect it back to what you mentioned earlier about just your past, right? And like
Mhm.
kind of how you've been working with a therapist and talking about the inner child, right? Like so much
Mhm.
of our thinking processes and our behavioral processes are rooted in our childhood.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if that's necessarily common knowledge, you know what I mean? So
Right.
kudos, first of all, acknowledging you, Mike, for doing the work, man, and like
Yeah.
and going and working with a therapist and being curious about yourself and your history and taking that next step and being curious of like, oh, well, there may be other ways of existing in the world. So I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if that's something you notice too when you go into these homes. And I almost heard in that like you taking this objective like point of view, like you almost like kind of removing yourself
Yeah.
from it and just like really objectively watching with so much empathy, it sounds like, as well. I'm just curious, yeah, if there's some connections you can draw there too, of like, just the power of, I guess, what happens in our childhood.
I mean, it molds our future, right? I think it sets us up for who we are today. And I think that without my therapist, Vicente, highlighting that, I would have never gotten through what I've got, what made me that fostered my current relationship right now. And so going through therapy, he was like, all right, let's take a step back. And so I always tell families that words are powerful. So, and kind of just rock with me here, but words are powerful that I don't just talk and say, I don't just, like I said, I'm a very quiet person. So I don't just like talk and talk and talk just to make people comfortable, right? If I don't feel like talking, I'm not going to talk type of thing, right? And so I'm very intentional with what I say and how I say it. That also kind of goes into my field as well, too, when I'm working with parents and they have nonverbal children, some of them, and so or some have emerging language as well too. And so I tell them that words are intentional. So let's not just throw around words here and there that don't mean anything or that are empty, right? Or like just filler words in those situations where we can be more authentic, we can be more intentional, and we can be more purposeful with what we say and how we say it. And so back when I was, like I said, a child in my past, that inner child, I I don't say I wouldn't have noticed the shift back then, but it being highlighted by my therapist, it made sense because of some of those light bulb or flash bulb moments where it's like, okay, this is where this happened. And so I'll tell you guys another story. Um, I don't know, maybe a year or two into my mom and my stepfather's marriage, um, I straight up told my mom, I was like, I don't like this guy. I don't know if I was 12 or 11, 12. I was like, I don't like this guy. I don't like him. I don't want him here. And I only like him, or I only like him because you're making me. And she popped me in my mouth. And she's like, you're gonna accept him because I accept him, or you're gonna love him because I love him, or something like that. And so that moment right there took that inner child away. So no longer is Mike going to be expressive to his mother, which, 25 years later, I'm having issues communicating with my mom based upon that specific incident right there. And this is not, and I've spoken with my mom about this for, a few years going through therapy and, why you felt you needed to do that or do this, right? And so we've kind of opened up that Pandora's box as well too. But at that moment where she popped me in my mouth, from that moment on, I've been intentional with my words, right? I knew, like, okay, now it's not to speak out of line, not to say how I feel sometimes, not to be this expressive person verbally, because it doesn't matter how I feel right now because my mom just taught me that it only matters how she feels. And so I don't think she knew the ramifications that that would have as I grew up to be an adult. And so I didn't start my therapeutic journey until I was maybe I'm 36 right now, so I think I was maybe 31, 32. And so that leads me into a story where I had a problem connecting with my current girlfriend for 5 years. So I can't connect with my mom, which is I want that. That's my queen, right? We're told to put our mothers on this pedestal, right? We're told to that's the queen, she birthed you, she did this, this, and this. And so I have this like kind of idolized my mom, right? Because that's what they're telling you to do. That's what you're supposed to do. That's your mother, right? And then therapy told me like, okay, she can still be up there, but she also has her faults as well too. And you have to work through those faults because unless you work through those faults, you're not going to be who you're supposed to be. And so I remember a pivotal moment in um, therapy. My therapist was like, "Why aren't you connecting with your girlfriend? Or why do you want to take breaks so much? Or why do you, always have one foot in and one foot out?" I was like, and I broke down, started crying. I was like, "Bro, I don't even have a relationship with my mom." And he was like, "Well, that's it." He was like, how can you connect with, the woman that gave you life or that birthed you and try to connect with another lady that you just met, a year or two ago, whatever it is. And so at that point, at that moment, I was like, shit, like that was like that light bulb moment where it's like I don't connect with my mom the way that I want to, so how am I going to connect with this other individual the way that I want to if I haven't mended or I haven't talked about it or tried to mend what's been going on with my mom for the past 31 or 32 years. Like there's history there. You got to get that ball rolling. You got to roll through it, and then it'll transfer over to other people. But yeah, I think the importance of that inner child, it was it wasn't I had to push him down, right? I had to sequester him. I had to keep him down. I couldn't be uh, the child that you see like sometimes in movies or outside, like just loving life, right? I look at pictures prior to 11. I'm like, shit, like bro, I was having fun. I'm outside, like I'm smiling, and then from like 11 to like college, it's like you're in the trenches, like you're in this cell, right? It's not happy, it's not fun, it's not what you thought it was supposed to be, right? And so, like I said, that trauma and abuse was just like everything was just kind of flatlined until I got to college and it kind of opened back up, and I kind of spread my wings again after that.
Wow. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing and expressing what that is, because one of the things that I heard from in there, and Jordan talked about your career now, one of the things that makes as a valued asset in your position is to be objective in this and your point of view and all these things. I'm curious, as a behavioral analyst, one of the one of the practices that I'm assuming is best situationally is to not hold judgment. And I'm curious now that as you transcend through life and grow, if you're able to look back at your relationship specifically with your mother and withhold the judgment that perhaps was there prior to. Did you see yourself, like, I guess, applying from what in your career was then used in your personal life, as well as you began to go, she's just a human, like, and granted be our parent, but still, like, it's just a human. I love her deeply, but it's a human.
Right. Yeah, and you hit it. Like I still love her to death, right? That's mom's. And so having that objective view, it was hard for me to understand, right? So now she was 30, I was 11, so she was maybe late 20s, early 30s. So she's about the age I started therapy when she, married this new guy. So I'm like, okay, what's her mindset? Like, I'm a 30-year-old. What's the mindset? How do I, I'm trying to put myself in her situation, take that objective view, because of course, I clearly day one, I didn't like the guy. So it lasted 26 years, right? And so I'm like, how could you be in a situation that lasted that long, right? So like, mom, help me help you, right? And like I said, we've had these open, honest conversations. Help me help you understand it because from what my knowledge, I never saw you like really happy. Like I never saw you enjoying life. He was never at the parties. He was never at functions. He was always kind of the -1 guy, right? You know, you have a +1 where they're always going somewhere. He was the minus, like you were always solo. My friend's parents never saw him, right? So it's like, what was really going on? And so I had to take a step back and have that objective view on like, hey mom, talk to me about it. Like what's going on? You know, how did you feel? Did you feel you had to remarry? What did he say? What did he do that kind of sealed the deal? Throughout the marriage, were there red flags? Was there this? Was there that? Right? There's so many caveats to, like you said, humans, right? My mom was a human. And so once I understood that, it kind of lightened the load, I would say, or it kind of made me not as I wouldn't. We've had this conversation too, and she mentioned the word like, do I resent her? And I don't resent her, right? I think we've all made choices, and we're like you said, we're human, right? We all have made mistakes, or we all have done things that may not have been the best option at that time. And so I never resent my mom, but I also have had talks with her and with my therapist as well on like how to get over that. And like I said, 26 years is just so long. It's hard to just, all right, overnight, I'm good. Or a year later, I'm good. Or month by month, I'm good. And so it's just you have to take these baby steps objectively to see what that person went through. And so, dope thing on Instagram, I saw it's called Life Story. And there's little, it's probably like 200 cards of just like, hey, you pull out a card and it says, hey, tell me about your first your one of your moments that you remember like in the first grade, or tell me your best friend when you were in seventh grade. Like it has these pivotal kind of moments, and I was like, all right, let me get out of this frame as not being able to connect with my mom, and let me start trying to connect with her. And so we started pulling cards together, like, hey, what was your most proudest moment in high school? Or hey, what was your first job? Or what was I don't know, your first teacher's last, different things where it sparks conversation. And so I found out that once again, my biological father was very abusive to my mother as well when I was in Oklahoma for that 6 months. And so that's why we left, just of that physical abuse. And then also, my mom's father died when she was, I want to say 6 or 7. So she really had no father figure as well, too. So if we want to put that kind of quote unquote daddy issues on, my mom, she didn't have a father figure. She was raised by her mother and her aunts, right? She married young and early to an abusive man that didn't treat her right, right? So now I have a son. Let me go somewhere safe because I think me and my son are in danger. Let me go live with my sister in California. Once we kind of stabilize in California, now she finds another guy who, says this or says that, right? And so I'm like, shit, like I didn't know that. So all that kind of brings my guard down, right? All that kind of brings my wall down when I'm trying to understand, like you said, CJ, this human, right? My mom is a human. And taking her from that idolized position and bring her to a human position has helped me kind of understand her and her journey a lot more.
Well, and to piggyback off that, I was talking with Jordan about this yesterday on a conversation. If we start with where the root is of something versus the because we're talking about the outer edges once we get to the 11 years old, her root was
Mm.
safety, the
Yeah,
safety for you, right? That's where we start and we can find more agreements. But it was through that conversation and communication that's happened later on where we can get to that and give more grace. So that's a
right.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it also is all the root problem, right? So a lot of the time in my profession as well too, our parents are like, "Oh, my son is aggressive, or my daughter, she hates this, she doesn't do this." And so I always take it a step back and I talk to the parents first. So my first introduction to parents is not, "Here's ABA, here's what we're doing, here's what session looks like." It's no, "Hey, how's your day going? Cool, cool. How's your husband? How's your work?" So I'm trying to pick and choose and see how I can best kind of intervene into your life, or I can enter into your life, right? I don't care about your child right now at the moment because right now you make the biggest difference. So let me see where I can kind of wiggle my way in with you because you're stressed. I can see you're exhausted. You're tired. So, okay, how can I alleviate that? Because if I don't alleviate that stress or that tiredness or that fatigue, you're not going to be able to work with your child in a productive manner. So that's my first goal is get you to, 8 out of 10. 7 out of 10, right? Get your energy up because then you'll be more susceptible and accepting of my delivery and my instruction. So that first month, I barely talk about the kids or their behaviors. I talk about the parents. And I even go deep with the parents if they allow me to, kind of how we're talking today. I say, hey, how were you raised? A lot of people are parenting how they were parented, right? And you're not your child or you're not your daughter, so you can't parent how your mom parented you. You have to find a whole nother way to parent this child who is also on the spectrum. Okay, so let's go back and let's talk kind of like we're having. Where are your triggers? Okay, where did it start at? Are you a single mom, right? Do you have a support system? Are you worried about safety and security, right? Are you working about finances? Are your bills paid, right? So a lot of these things like we go into or I go into sessions knowing like I don't care about the child, I don't care about, we'll get to that later. Like, how are you doing at the moment?
Mm. Wow, man. Something I want to call out too for the listeners, and just to acknowledge you as a communicator, Mike, as you talked about earlier, man. Like most of your questions that you've brought into this conversation today start with how or what, as opposed to, right, like why questions, or do you think it's this, or do you think it's that, right? So like why questions can often have judgment behind them, right? Or do you think questions typically have our solution of what it might be in the form of a question, as opposed to like your pure curiosity of like, hey, like how is it that we got here today? How are you doing today? How are things going at home? How are things going at work? That's pure curiosity. And that leaves a space open for people to bring the truth forward, or at least get closer to it, right? So we're getting to that root, as CJ talked about.
Yeah, yeah, that's dope. And I think that's something that we're taught, if you want to call us scientists, right? Um, like you said, and I until you mentioned it, I never really thought about it, but why always leads you. We're not told to ask why in our like master's courses, right? Because why you have to figure it out, right? You can't just go to the source because you have to pull back all the different layers. So how can I get to those layers without kind of saying why, right? And so I've learned that I let the parents spill their guts. You tell me, right? So a lot of you guys do the same thing as well too. So tell me about a time or tell me when, and you just go silent. And so a lot of people are uncomfortable with silence. And so that's when they just start vomiting, right? Like, oh, this, right? I'm like, okay, give it to me. I love it. Tell me every single thing because everything you're saying, I'm writing it down, I'm mentally noting it, and I'm going to use that here to get to where we need to be in the long term, right? Because that awkward silence, it's not awkward to me. In college, we always said it's only awkward if you make it. So it's never awkward if I'm silent and you're silent because you're thinking, right? You're saying, how can I deliver this? How can I say this correctly? How can I put this in a way that it's digestible for both parties involved?
Hmm. Yeah, man, it's cool. And yeah, same, like similar in the coaching profession too. Like I kind of joke with people, it's like I'm good with silence.
Yeah, yeah,
As a trained coach, I mean, like to your point, man, like usually, you know, someone's gonna bring some more information forward. So it sounds like it's a craft that you've honed in on as
yeah,
you're going into these homes and helping people, and likely as just a communicator out there in society as well.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
So tell me, Mike.
Yeah,
Now with all this though, I'm curious now with all that we've just talked about, and this is the Practicing People's podcast. You've illuminated a lot, which has left me with a lot of questions, and there's probably more than a few practices that you have within yourself and instill. I'm just curious if you could expand on some of the practices that help to enhance both your career, but your personal life more so, because I feel as if this career does bleed into your personal because it's Mike bringing his authentic self to his
yeah,
profession.
yeah.
So, could you talk about some of your practices that you kind of are your Bible to make Mike come as his best every day?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, man. As always, I had this kind of illumination the other week is putting on my cleats and feeling the grass is probably like a top five emotion for me, right? No matter where I'm at, if I'm at the park, if I'm down the street, like putting on my cleats and just running around is just euphoric. It's one of those centering moments where that's what I can relate to, and that takes me back to my inner child. That takes me back to when I was playing flag football in Torrance, California. It takes me back to my roots, and it's genuinely what makes me happy. No matter if we are doing 110s or gassers or cone drills, like I don't care what we're doing, putting on those cleats and touching grass is a centering moment for me where nothing matters. Like literally, I think I have a college workout manual that I do like once a year just to make sure I still got it, right? You never know if you gotta, real quick. So I'll do it once a year just to, get the conditioning back up and just, like I said, stay in shape. And so I started that 3 weeks ago, and it's like a 12-week program. And I was like, fuck, man, this feels good, dude. Like putting on my cleats and just jogging and running and just, feeling the wind against your face. I would say that is one of those times where, like I said, I practice just being centered, being myself, no matter how much it sucks or how exhausted I am, or, it just brings me back to a peace. It's peaceful for me. That also goes into, as you alluded to earlier in the introduction, I go to the gym probably 3, 4 times a week. And so, headphones on, just in my zone, in my own world, singing, dancing, lifting weights, getting sweaty, right? I think that really just brings me joy as well too, and it also has positive effects for longevity as well too, right? So I want to be healthy. I want to be here for my children. I want to be here for my family and my friends, and so let me take care of my body as well too. So running around, doing that cardio, going to the gym as well. Um, and then sometimes I'll just be in my room and I'll just listen to music. So Bob Dylan, that's my guy. So I'll turn him on occasionally. Definitely very interested in like symphony and orchestra music. So when I'm like really antsy or I can just feel that anxiety rising, I'll just turn that on and I'll just kind of like sit and just vibe out, right? Maybe have some medicinal marijuana to assist me, but that is one of the things that I usually do to kind of just calm myself, center myself. I don't know if you guys remember, it was that Fresh Prince episode where, rest in peace, Uncle Phil, but he's listening to the classical music on the couch, and then Will comes in and starts like scratching on the table. But that's like me. I'm in my zone, like I'm just chilling with that music on, just to kind of center and kind of get back to self, right? Because there's so many outside noise. I think on your minds, is it Mindset Mondays, CJ?
Yeah, mindset matters
Yeah,
Monday. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mindset. Yeah, yeah. You mentioned value, right? Are we consumers, right? We're so consumed with consuming, right? Instagram, Facebook, Amazon Prime deals, July 16th, July 17th, Prime, right? So we're just like so like go go go, where you're just like, bro, like chill, like don't pick up the phone. Relax. It's okay. Turn it on airplane mode. Turn the tunes up. Like just get that. So that's why I loved your Mindset Mondays, and it just kind of makes it like you find yourself just consuming so much, and it really takes an emotional toll on you without you even knowing until you practice intentionally how to bring yourself back to center.
That goes to Jordan specifically, and I'll let him expand on this. But that came from a conversation where I was going through a bit of depression. Just career was like it had been slow in the town. I
Mm,
asked Jordan, we talked about it, and his question to me was, "Are you being a consumer of value right now, or are you actually creating value?" Because
mm,
it would seem through his analysis and kind listening ears, I was talking about a lot about consuming, like what was coming to me versus
mm,
what I was creating and putting out there in the world, Jay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like you covered it well, man. And I think the idea is like when, to mix in Mike's point too, like if we're not consciously present enough to even think about it with all the distractions going on in today's world, I mean, we're kind of leaving it up to chance of just kind of going on autopilot and like focusing on the consumption and like bringing stuff in and like getting, attaining, acquiring, all of that. But when we take a second, listen to some music, whatever our practice is, to get present and think about how can we put more good out into the world? How can we create more value so there's more for other people to consume? Like we become actually a magnet for that too, at the same time. So it's kind of this, double win. Like it's this gain situation to where if I'm creating value and other people are receiving on the receiving end of it, then it's putting more good out into the world. That's kind of the bigger picture there.
Yeah, and that goes to, and when you mentioned that, Jordan, I mentioned to a lot of my parents, like, how can you pour from an empty cup, right? So if a parent is exhausted, a parent is tired, fatigued, working, like I said, bills, all these other extraneous variables, how can they pour into their children when they don't have, when they're empty? And so that's why my focal point is parents. I'm like, okay, cool, let's get you to 50% at least, right? Let's get you to 60, 70. I can work over time. I can get you to where you need to be. But let's work on you right now because you can't pour into your children if you're empty and you're tired and you're exhausted. And that goes over like it's human behavior, right? Like you said, if I'm in these depressed moments or having these depressive episodes, okay, I can't give to my partner how I want to. I can't give to my profession how I want to. I can't give to all the people that may be counting on me or that are involved in my life. I can't give them what they need or what they deserve at the moment because I'm not where I need to be at the moment. And so it's very illuminating when you can highlight like, okay, cool. I need to fall back, right? My social battery is dead. I need to talk to somebody, right? And I think a dope thing that you said, CJ, is that you reached out. I think a lot of men specifically don't reach out when they're going through issues or they're having concerns. I know during kind of the 2000 or 2020 COVID, George Floyd, a lot of that I reached out to my friends. I'm like, bro, like Aubrey, Ahmaud Aubrey, right? I run in my community with my shirt off. I'm a black man in America, and I saw him get chased down. I saw the ramification, the consequences of him running in the community. I do the same thing, and I also have a 80-pound Rottweiler that I take with me. So I can only imagine how intimidating that might be to some people, right? And so I had to talk to my friends. I was like, bro, like I don't feel safe in America right now. Like I don't feel like I can't even exercise. I can't do the stuff that makes me happy because I just saw on CNN, Fox News, whatever you absorb, that this black man was running and he got shot down. Like how does and I tell my boys like that makes me feel uneasy. Like I can't live my life because other people are taking lives of others based upon the color of their skin. And so having those open conversations with those people that you trust can help you get through those kind of episodes or those moments where it's just like, I don't know what's going on. I can't explain it. I need, a therapist is also a good thing that I mentioned earlier, but it's just someone to rally and someone to, I'm sorry, not rally, but volley ideas off of back and forth is essential to growth, right? And understanding, okay, I feel this way. Let me make sure I'm not tripping, right? I'm not bugging out, let me see if and you get to volley ideas off of each other and kind of bring you back or, off that ledge per se.
The one I want to mention, it goes to this and back to what you said also, that I was recognizing when I asked you about your practices. They were really illuminated, I guess, the physical, but really the feel. I was talking to Jordan yesterday about feelings and how life is a feeling process and it's meant to be felt. And we're so much more analytical about things that are just simply there to be felt. And three of the practices you talk about specifically were to feeling. It's how you feel. The touch of the grass and that it brought you to the feeling of this. Like you can sort of think your way to a feeling, but like you were so soul tuned, so present and aligned with what you're feeling. And that can really raise that vibration.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said in the introductions, life ain't a life till you live it, right? And that's a Mac Miller quote from a song. And so I've been intentional on living life. You have these feelings and these, like I said, flash and light bulb moments where I had one we're in the coast of France on Yacht Week, and we're in the streets and we're partying and we're drinking and it's just your people in a different country trying to speak a different language. Just everybody you bond, everyone bonds over music, right? Music is a universal language. So even if he's from Germany or she's from Denmark or they're from Australia or they're from I don't know, Russia, right? All those, they don't care. The music is what unites all of us. And I had that moment. I was like, fuck, bro, like I'm 36. I'm in France. I'm partying with my people. Like this is fucking life right here, bro. Like this is a feeling that you chase, and that there's all these little moments. I had one in Thailand when I was there a few years ago too. It's like these moments are feelings that you just want to capture and just hold on to forever, because it's like I'm here right now. I have arrived, right? This is a moment that I want to encapsulate forever because it just makes me happy. I'm joyful. Like I'm experiencing with the people that I want to experience it with, right? Like it's just those moments, and it's just that feeling you can't really explain.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And yeah, I think to your point, Mike, what I heard in that too is just taking a moment to acknowledge how you are feeling, right? Like when you are kind of in that blissful state, and just, yeah, having gratitude, right? And just, yeah, really appreciating it. So, as we start to, kind of come on the ending side of the conversation, I'm just curious, for someone who's been listening, Mike, and um, as CJ mentioned, man, you've talked about a lot of practices that you've embraced. Between objective, just listening, curiosity, making sure you're taking care of your body, listening to music, with a deliberate intention. So I'm just curious, if someone were to be like, "Hey, Mike, if you have some advice for me to start, kind of going down this path," how would you answer that?
Easy, man. Get to know yourself. That's where it starts. You have to, like I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't uh, you can't be who you're supposed to be if you don't know who you are. And it all stems back to what we talked about, guys, is that inner child. If you don't know where it started, what happened, how you, either, rose from it, or how you changed, or how you developed from it, you're not going to be able to know yourself. Like I wasn't able to really, I thought I knew myself, right? So I'm 28, 29, 30, right? Living life, girl dating girls, whatever, whoop-de whoop, and I'm, trying to have this serious relationship with my current girlfriend, and it's just not connecting. And so that therapy was like, dude, it's like you're this age, let's take it back, let's see what went wrong, what went right, how you developed, how your behavior changed, all this and that. But all that was a journey, and like you said, it's curiosity. I want to know myself even more, right? Like I thought I knew myself until I didn't, until somebody illuminated, a third party illuminated and highlighted what this actually means, what you're hiding, what you're omitting, what you're not trying to tell me at this moment without trying not to tell me, right? Like they're professionals that can highlight those things to make you more observant and like, oh shit, like I tried to pull, the wool over his eyes, but he still caught me. I tried to bullshit him, but it didn't work, right? So it takes you to know yourself and be intentional about change if you want to, right? I don't force anything on anybody. If you want to do it, I tell parents, hey, these are the strategies I have for you. I'm not saying you have to do those things, but you did call me. You did call me because you had a need, right? And this is my professional perspective on how we can change, or get to these outcomes that you want. You don't have to do these things, right? I mean, I can go to another family, but you have the free will to do these things if you want it to reach that desired behavior or that desired outcome. So overall, I say get to know yourself. Be good with silence. Silence is going to tell you a lot. I always say we have two ears and one mouth because we're supposed to listen twice as much as we speak, right? And so just be quiet, listen, hear people, right? Do all these different things, man. Like you learn a lot about yourself when you don't feel like you have to say something, right? You get to just absorb a lot more, right? And I found this quote that I had saved, and let me see if I can find it really quick. I favorited it today, because I felt like it would be useful. But it says, "No one will know the violence it took to become this gentle." And so I would say, with me, literally, right, and figuratively, I've had to just battle myself, right? I've had to become the person who I see in my dreams, right? I have to be this person that I want to be. I have to live life authentically. And I would have never got to where I am today without taking a deep dive on myself, without kind of going through therapy and figuring out different type of things. Because looking back, I've been through some shit, and I think everybody's been through some shit, right? And so we have to acknowledge it, and then we have to adjust and pivot and change to get those specific outcomes.
Mm.
Mike, I commend you for allowing yourself to, I guess, take off the mask to be most authentic. And the cool part is knowing you for almost 20 years now. The guy that I've always known has been amazing, loving, friendly, funny, kind. But it just goes to show you that there is something that's always going on behind the scenes, behind the curtain,
Right,
that someone's going through that you never know. And it
right,
can really eat that person up and they can lose their shine. So I just want to commend you for really honoring the truest, most authentic version of yourself and continuing to want to honor that every day.
yeah. No, man, I appreciate it, and I think that is a thing where we're getting older, man, and we're starting to lose people. I just lost my buddy a couple of weeks or July 4th weekend. I think he passed away in his sleep, and he was only 30 years old, and he was one of my travel buddies. And so it makes you just realize, like I wish I would have known you had that depressive episode. Like I should have reached out to you a lot more. I know we once every 6 months I'll tap in, say CJ, how you doing? What's up? Let's connect. Dodger game, whatever it is, but it makes you realize, like, bro, like I need to do it more. Like once a month, I need to call CJ, text CJ. Now I'm gonna start bugging Jordan, like, hey, dude, what's up? How you doing? How's Colorado? Right? So it's these connections that we have, where it's like we don't think about it, but we have to because we're getting older. Everybody's getting older, and things happen that's out of our control, and we never know what's going on. We see CJ on commercials and on TV. We're like, oh, that's my boy, right? Send him screenshots. And lo and behold, CJ could be going through like an episode, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, hey, bro, I see you on that IHOP commercial eating salmon. Like that's weird, but how you doing? Type of stuff like that. So it's just those check-in moments, right? Where it's just a text or hey, man, thinking about you, right? And just doing different things because, like I said, we never know what somebody could be going through.
Amen. Respect. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
of course,
That's
of
so
course.
spot on, man. And to maybe add just a couple more points to that too. I mean, something you brought up from at the beginning, Mike, was when you were on your trip, how you recharged your battery was some alone time, right? Like putting on the
Yeah,
headphones, zoning out. That's not gonna look the same for everyone, right? And that
yeah,
that
right.
that builds onto your point of, like, get to know yourself. Other
Yeah,
people may need to go and have a conversation with someone to, like, recharge their battery and get inspired and
right.
get centered, right? So, there isn't one perfect way to do it for everyone. And one other thing too is, like, emotions don't pick sides. So I know a lot of, like, men, like, "Ah, well, I know a homie who's got it even worse than me right now, so, like, I shouldn't even be feeling bad about what I'm going through." It's
Yeah,
like, no, like, that's your body giving you information that you need to
yeah,
process, right? And, like,
right.
that's okay, right? Like, we're all humans, and we all emote differently and
Right.
experience things differently. So there isn't a side picker of who's got it worse. It's more
Mhm.
so you experienced it. And yeah, make sure you do have a circle that you can reach out to, man. And we can be that example of, to your point, Mike, reaching out more intentionally to others and really checking in.
Right, right. I know definitely that kind of machismo, right? Or hyper masculinity. Like I don't care. Like I'll cry, I'll talk to my boys, tell them how I feel. Like I don't have any of that kind of, if you want to call it pridefulness and masculinity, where I'm afraid to say this or someone's going through it worse than I am, right? And like you said, Jordan, you don't know any of those feelings until you know yourself, right? Like that's where the why question comes in, is when you look introspectively, like, why am I feeling this way, right? Or what triggered that emotion? So I'm feeling this type of wave because of what? Okay, and then where does that stem from, right? And it just keeps unraveling and unraveling and say, okay, cool. I might not have headphones or I might not be next to grass and have my cleats, but what can I do to re-energize or center myself, right? How can I work through this emotion and things like that? So is definitely, like you said, getting to know yourself, what works best for you. Because what works for me doesn't work for you, Jordan. It doesn't work for CJ. Everybody's different, and you don't know that until you know yourself.
Yo, you this conversation has been illuminating and everything that I guess I thought it would be. As we close up, would you be able to, or if there's anything that you wanted to share with people, both in how to connect with you, whether it be on any platforms, but also any last imparting words of wisdom from Mike that he would want anybody to know out there listening right now?
To connect with me, I think it's weird. So my personal life is super private. I don't really tell anybody anything unless you're like in my circle. So my Instagram is private, but my company, The Parent Trap LLC, you can find on TikTok, YouTube, and you can find on Instagram and Facebook. I think I already said all that. So yeah, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, The Parent Trap LLC. That's the company that we've spoken about earlier today. And I'm just dropping bars, dropping knowledge, dropping wisdom as best as I can, being myself to parents dealing, with both children on and off the spectrum, right? I'm a behavior analyst. I study human behavior, so I can study with your child that's not on the spectrum, or I can, do strategies and implement things for children with different other disabilities as well too. So the Parent Trap LLC is where you can find me. I try to stay active. I'm not the best at social media and all that stuff and editing and blah blah blah, but that's one social media. Those social media connections can be made, and then wisdom for a takeaway. Ooh, that's a good one. Um, wisdom, man. I don't know. I feel like we just touched on it just so much throughout this entire thing, but just live life authentically. I think once you live it authentically, how you envision yourself or how you on your own terms, I think a lot of that just falls into place, right? Not doing, what mom wants you to be, or not doing what dad wants you to be, or what the boyfriend or girlfriend or wife or husband wants you to be, or what your family wants you to be, right? Just being who you are. And I learned that early on. Like, I'm a black man in this field dominated by women, less than 4%. I don't wear a tie, glasses, or a button-up shirt, but I'm gonna show up and be me, and you're going to get the same information you would from me that you got from him. And so just being you wherever you go. That's one of the things my mentor told me. She's like, "Hey, Mike, you're you wherever you go." And I take that with a badge of honor. So just be you, be authentic. Some people will rock with you, some people won't. And if they don't, they're not meant for you. So just keep it pushing.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. Well, nothing but gratitude for you, Mike. Thank you again for joining us on the show, man. You're welcome back, obviously, anytime. And just know how much support you have from us. And yeah, we're cheering you on, man, and the work that you're doing and you being the authentic you, brother. So
Yeah.
please, yeah, join us again and let us know how we can support you moving forward, man.
Yeah, same to you guys as well too. So like I said, Jordan, now you're locked in. And so I'm gonna connect with you, connect with CJ. I appreciate this platform. I appreciate you guys reaching out to me as like I said, sometimes men in the world, right? We get kind of stuck in our ways and we're very stubborn, but having three men talk about feelings, right? Feelings. It's okay to have feelings, man. It's okay to do these things, right? And you guys have created this platform to identify how you're feeling and how to challenge yourself, how to figure it out, how to, make it make sense, right? And so I appreciate you guys and your platform and the knowledge and wisdom that you guys are spreading, because I think it's something that it's not just needed for us, but it's needed for everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us today on the Practicing People's podcast. We hope you found our conversation inspiring and thought-provoking. We appreciate your support and passion for personal growth and self-improvement.
To help build the Practicing People's community, please follow us on Instagram at Practicing People's Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and engaging discussions. Liking and sharing our posts will spread the word about the podcast to others who can benefit from these conversations. You can also reach out to us at our website, www.practicingpeoples.com, for more materials and ways to tap into the community.
Leaving a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform is a valuable way to support us and help potential listeners discover our show.
Remember, personal growth is a journey we embark on together. Let's build a community where we uplift and inspire one another to achieve our true potential.
Thank you for being part of the Practicing People's podcast family. And until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.